I do got to talk about this. The most probably top 3 viewed MMA fight on YouTube is you defeating GSP in one of the biggest UFC upsets in the history.
Thank you.
I got to understand this. You know, how did you block out the doubters? How did you stick to your game plan? How did you go into this fight and defeat this guy and literally put on a show for the ages?
No, well, you brought up earlier, what's my favorite movie? Rocky hit me. I watched that at an early age. So I love and I suit the underdog way better than the champion. And I'll be the first to admit that. Fuck, did you ever see the rematch? No, I'm only kidding. But listen, I tell everybody, this is what I tell people when they bring up this fight. You know what? I'll talk about this fight first. I mean, the one thing I really had going for me is I was known as that jiu-jitsu guy. I never really, besides one fight with Caro, which I was kind of forced to because I had a meniscus thing I had to work around. I never really stood up with the guys because I know that my bread and butter is getting a guy down and smoking him like a joint, you know? So George fought better wrestlers than me. He fought Matt Hughes, Frank Trigg, Sean Shirk, even Mayhem Miller. These guys, I'm not saying they're better jiu-jitsu guys, but as far as getting it to the floor, these guys are bigger than me. I'm not a huge, you know, I'm 5'6", man. I'm wide, but I'm not a huge 170er. I was like a tweener. I used to fight at 155. I got like 4 or 5 fights at 155. So, you know, I see on paper, if you look at this fight, my fight styles make fights. If I'm trying to get this guy to the floor, and that's usually my tactic, how am I gonna have that success, man? But first of all, it's gonna be hard to get him fucking there. And second of all, it's gonna be hard to keep him there. And over 5 rounds, you know? So I knew I was gonna take my chances standing up. And I knew over years of getting, you know, rounds in. I didn't have it when I first got in the UFC. It was all like learning on the job. You know, I had to clock in the rounds with the sparring. And this fight even got pushed back from the original date, so I had even extra time to work on the game plan with Longo feeding me with the strikes that he's been doing in his previous matches, which was very karate based. A lot of high kicks. Longo's like, he's not on a karate shit. I'm gonna show you, Longo. But you know, so I mean, he got me set up perfectly. And then I had that ace up the sleeve because George did not expect me to stand with him.
No, he didn't.
You know, so I know that, you know. So again, when people do ask me about this, I you know, and it's part of it's because George is such a fucking great guy. I always tell people, you know, thank you, but just don't watch the rematch. You know, I make a joke about it because, you know, I like that saying where you don't like let a fucking any win really get to your head or any loss get to your heart because you know this sport, dude, is fucking unforgiving. We had fights where we should have won, we lost. Fights I should have lost, maybe I won, you know, whatever. It's a game of inches, man. So I'm one of those guys just happy to be here.
Is it true that GSP said that he was tapping to the strikes and that he, like, do you recall him tapping? Because I remember reading that, you know, it was Big John's stoppage and we talked about this, but then I saw something where GSP talked about he was tapping due to the strikes.
Well, George is not ashamed to admit that he'll even say that he tapped the strikes. He'll even say, like, live to fight another day, that type of shit. But it's horrible. I'm not the best with the impressions. But George is not he's a very humble guy.
Yeah.
And he even said that he tapped because he was beaten and he knew he was going to get more damage. And that's very... Wow, you know
so
a lot of guys are like, no, that's a fact. I'm not saying that. You could ask George.
I'm legit just wondering because I've never heard of that, and I know George is a very honorable guy, very professional.
No, for sure.
So I just didn't know if that was true or not.
No, that's 100% true.
Wow, that's crazy.
No.
Have you ever heard of someone tapping the strikes?
Yeah, some people tap the strikes.
Yeah, but I mean, he was already like, he never got his legs underneath him after I had him hurt. You know, so you know, he was bested, and I think he knew he was bested. And, you know, I mean, and it's one of those things where, you don't want to shit on a guy for that because unless you're in that position, mounted, having those blows thrown at you after getting blasted how many times. I mean, you know, I don't look at him any differently for that. You know?
No, I don't think anybody would. I just think that I never knew that was a thing. So it was kind of cool.
Well, you never seen about tap from strikes?
No, but I didn't think that a guy like George St. Pierre being so accomplished and being probably one of the most complete fighters the UFC's ever seen, I didn't think that story was true.
But it's you could just when you say tap to strikes, it's not like we're standing up. I give him a couple shots. He's like, all right, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
He got. I dropped him a few times and I blasted him really hard, and then I followed him up. I'm mounted on him. I don't even think he knew where he was just having fists in his face at that point. So, you know, it's an extremely stressful situation.
That was the first round as well, right?
Yeah, that was the first round.